Meghan Markle tells her listeners that the latest episode of a much-anticipated Archetypes podcast aims to unwrap the term crazy and how it's used to completely dismiss someone's experience. But Meghan has come under fire for repeatedly pivoting away from her guests' experiences to focus on her own. Freddy Gray, deputy editor of the Spectator, notes, Meghan's self-absorption is dizzying. The subtext of every female story ends up actually being Meghan's own struggles. He points out that in an exchange with the guests, actress Constance Wu, in which Miss Wu starts crying while reflecting on her sexual abuse, Meghan pivots effortlessly back to herself. I would love to cry this much, but I'm conditioned to still have a different kind of composure. This interaction is echoed with Meghan's second guest, Bollywood actress Deepika Padukone. Mr. Gray said, Deepika talks rather candidly about her mental health difficulties, only for Meghan to chip in helpfully about herself again. Meanwhile, Hilary Rose, a syndicated columnist reviewing Markle's Less podcast, refers to her as a woman who probably thinks she could give Jesus a run for his money in the Sermon on the Mount. She wrote, there are interesting discussions about the ways in which women can be stereotyped, but they're lost somewhere in a Meghan word soup. In the interest of fairness, I should mention that after 4 weeks of this guff, I sympathise. I only listen to it. She has to think of it, then say it out loud and maybe even know what it means. It must be exhausting. At one point, for example, she mentions how important it is that she sit in my truth, which I think means get out of bed. Toddler tantrums are held up as an example to us all on the healthy way to deal with emotions, which is a new one to me, and I must remember to tell my nephew how proud I was of him the time he lay full length and screaming on the floor of Trotters on the King's Road, beating his little fists against the floor with rage because he didn't want to have his hair cut. However, in the spirit of the podcast, I invite you to rank the following in order of how much they speak to your truth, and with particular reference to how dangerous it can be when a person's self-awareness is not trusted. She concluded, I feel that I too must now issue my own trigger warning. This may never end. I can find no hint online as to how many more episodes are still to come. Meghan evidently finds herself fascinating and wise, so maybe it will just go on forever. This woman, who probably thinks she could give Jesus a run for his money in the Sermon on the Mount, 4 episodes in I've waded through the first 3 stages of grief, denial, anger and bargaining, and got stuck on the 4th, depression. I'm peeping through my fingers at what next Tuesday might bring. I can't wait to be with you again next week, she says in a sign-off. Oh, Meghan, I wish that I could say the same. In response to the article by Rose, one royal fan said, the podcast has almost become acceptable to me, if only because I look forward to the recaps by Hilary Rose and Spectator. Brings me back to the good old days of television without pity. The second wrote, Meghan is hysterically funny and has crazy and delusional thoughts about her prestige, importance and impact. Another commented, crazy may not be a good word, but if the shoe fits. Markle podcast is nothing more than a pity partying extravaganza for the always aggrieved, victimised, wealthy, entitled, insulted and tantrum throwing Meghan Markle.